Tonight, we're taking a deeper look at the situation in Afghanistan and what it means for us here at home. What is ISIS-K and how concerned should Americans be when it comes to security? I spoke with USC International Relations professor Gregory Treverton. Professor Treverton, I want to go in depth with you about what's happening right now in Afghanistan. How concerned should Americans be about what's happening in regard to security, both abroad and here at home?
I think we should be medium concerned. I think our first concern really ought to be about the Afghan people who are really facing terrible hardships. It will be a question whether the Taliban can govern. We've frozen, $9.4 billion of Afghan assets. So it seems to me this is our first measure ought to be to try and use whatever leverage we have to see if we can make the Taliban governance as humane as possible, or encourage them in that direction, but mostly make sure that we don't inflict more suffering on the Afghan people. That's for me the top of the agenda. Security is next, but in the security realm, I think that's something we're concerned about. We're certainly worried about ISIS-K, but as far as I can tell, they don't have the projection to do damage to us at home. And we've seen since 9/11 that the threat from Middle East Muslim extremist terrorists has been relatively small. I used to say that more people have died from lightning than from Islamic extremist terrorists. That doesn't mean it isn't scary. It's something we should worry about. But it is, I think, a secondary in the immediate future to what happens to the Afghan people.
You mentioned ISIS-K. A lot of people I don't think are familiar with ISIS-K. We've heard of ISIS, but what differentiates ISIS-K from ISIS?
They're certainly kindred. They come from the same Syrian roots in some sense. They have the same basis, Islamic State. But if there's an ideological difference, it's that the ISIS-K people think that the Taliban, willing to settle for an emirate in Afghanistan, has abandoned the larger effort to make a global caliphate. That's the most visible kind of ideological or theological difference between the two. There's got to be lots of back and forth. They're mostly rivals now for the primacy in Afghanistan, or at least standing in Afghanistan. And so in a certain sense, that puts us in a funny position, being almost not allies, but in some ways on the same side as the Taliban in their effort to constrain ISIS-K, which obviously is for us the more visible, more worrisome terrorist threat.
And are terrorist threats growing across the globe? We keep hearing now about ISIS and ISIS-K and all these other groups. Is the problem getting worse?
I think the problem is not getting worse. I mean, we've done awfully well at containing it since 9/11. Maybe we've in some sense overreacted. So we've done a pretty good job with partners, and I think in general have done quite well. The intelligence cooperation has been good. What we see is really a proliferation of groups. It's not clear to me that that makes the overall threat greater, but it does make it more elusive. It means we've got more groups out there to try and keep tabs on, to try and understand, to try and counter if we need to. So in that sense, it seems to me that I don't think the terrorist threat has gotten particularly more dangerous. It's gotten more complicated. As we strike down one group, then typically it splits and splinters, and then we find ourselves with several different groups that we didn't really understand before. Early in the fight after 9/11, it was very much what we call in the business a wicked problem. That is, we were seeing new groups we didn't know of, didn't have much history, didn't have much understanding of, and that I think is the nature of the proliferating terrorist threat we see now.
So bottom line, Professor Treverton, what should the average American make of all of this and what's happening?
I think for the average American, the best thing they could do would be to be hospitable to Afghan refugees where they live, in their homes. I had a student, a Vietnamese American, who was talking about what he was doing in Orange County to try and be hospitable to Afghan refugees. I think that's the most visible first thing. Beyond that, then being somewhat vigilant, being careful, as we've come to be about terrorism in general. But I think in the first instance, it really is, if you could do things close to home to provide some better living for these people that have helped us put their lives on the line in Afghanistan, that would be a great contribution.
All right, Professor Treverton, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.